I'm Trevor McPherson, President and CEO of the Mississauga Board of Trade, and it's my pleasure to have you here this afternoon. I'd like to first acknowledge that we are gathering here today on the treaty lands and territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit and the traditional territories of the Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, Wendat, and Huron people. We also acknowledge the many First Nations, Inuit, Métis, and other global Indigenous peoples who call Mississauga home, and we are grateful for the opportunity to live and work, and indeed, build housing on this land. And to that end, I understand the Minister was here a couple of weeks ago to make an announcement about the supportive housing project undertaken by Indwell in Streetsville. And that we might hear a little bit about that today, but I found it quite interesting and nice to see the government, I think, investing $4.5 million in that project. We would certainly be remiss if we didn't thank our sponsor today, Lakeview Community Partners, for their support of the event. And we have Matthew Marsili here with us from Lakeview. Thank you very much for your continued support of our Board of Trade activities. We're delighted to have the Minister here today, Michael Parsa, Associate Minister of Housing, to really, really understanding the importance of housing today, and really, the housing issue, the labor issue, it's all intertwined. And so it's nice to see that some things are being done to bring solution to some of these issues where there's really no overnight solution. And I don't think it's been a while, if ever, when we've had so many of these issues facing us at the same time. I'd like to take time now to introduce a few special guests. I've already mentioned Matthew Marsili with Lakeview. My boss, my chair, Lucy Shaw, of the Nurse Next Door in Mississauga. Brad Butt, our outgoing Vice President, Government and Stakeholder Relations. As per the applause, Councillor-elect and will represent Ward 11 on both city and regional councils. I'd also like to congratulate Leanne Cole for her successful bid to be a school board trustee. I'm assuming with a public school board?
That's correct.
Yeah, with appeals school. And of course, the Honourable Michael Parsa. And I would like to also acknowledge the presence of one of our past chairs, George Karras, here as well. Now, I'd like to invite my chair, your chair of the Mississauga Board of Trade, Lucy Shaw, to introduce the Minister. Thank you.
Just love being his boss. Good afternoon, everyone. Michael Parsa was elected to the Ontario Legislature on June 7th, 2018 in the riding of Aurora, Oak Ridges, Richmond Hill. A strong proponent of family values, Michael and his wife Valerie have been living in the community since 2002. Michael has a BA in Organizational Management, and outside of his public service, he previously ran the family business which has been operating in the GTA since 1990. Deeply committed to the community, Michael has a long-standing reputation of actively engaging various communities and organizations within the region and beyond. He has previously worked and volunteered with the town in a variety of ways, including helping support initiatives for at-risk youth, personal mentorship, and empowerment. He has also previously sat on the board of the Optimist Club and served as president from 2005 to 2009. Please join me in welcoming the Honourable Michael Parsa.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. I don't know if I'm going to need a mic, but I think as an elected official, loud as it is. Yeah, people can hear us. So thank you very much. I really appreciate the kind introduction. I do want to thank some of the newly elected members, and Brad is so happy to see you back in public office again. Congratulations to you. Congratulations to the school trustee, and I want to congratulate all those who put their names forward. Whether you won or you weren't successful this time, the ideas that you put forward undoubtedly make the community better as a result because your voices were heard. I also see a lot of familiar faces, some new ones, so great to be in Mississauga. Mississauga, you're right, it's been a regular for us, so we've been coming back to Mississauga on a weekly basis. Lots to do, and the initiative certainly that you referred to through the Social Services Relief Fund, where units are going to be, very important units are going to be provided to the community through Ingwell, a great partner in the province to us. And we need more and more and more of that, so as I mentioned to them, I'm looking forward to coming back to Mississauga and other areas on a regular basis because there's just a need. So look, I get into trouble because I don't really like using notes, to be very frank with you, but my team has made it very clear that at times we're going to have to do that. So let me, I want to thank Trevor and Stephanie. Thank you all for joining us this afternoon. I really appreciate it, certainly to the Board of Trade for inviting me and for the great work that you do on a regular basis. You know, I'm a firm believer that we live in the best country in the world and the greatest province within the best country in the world. But you know, with that said, we have our own challenges, and certainly when you look at a province like Ontario, we can only be at our best and continue to be at our best when we look after everybody, and that means our most vulnerable as well. As you've heard it many times, the Premier has been very clear. We're in a housing crisis in the province. But the way out of this crisis really is a way where we need to work with one another. There's got to be a collaboration, as we were just chatting earlier at that table, between all levels of government, the private sector, nonprofit, community leaders. All of us need to come together to work collaboratively. And for us, that includes a promise to have every Ontarian to be able to have the opportunity to be able to come home to. You know, we are seeing more and more people struggle to be able to find homes, and for us, that promise that we made to build 1.5 million homes over the next 10 years, it's an unwavering commitment that we're going to work, as I said, with everyone to make sure that we get there, because failing is simply not going to be an option for us. I want to just tell you that you know, when we came into the legislature, when the Premier, myself, and the team got elected in 2018, we implemented dozens of policies that have made meaningful difference already, and we're seeing the results. If you look at the province, you know, we had our best year when it came to housing starts in 2021. We had over 100,000 starts in the province of Ontario. And why is that significant? Why is it important when we talk about it? Because when you look at the best success, the last time we had 100,000 starts in the province of Ontario, we had to go back to 1987. That's a long time ago. And if you look at the growth of the province since then, when we're only hitting 100,000 after taking so many initiatives, it's just not enough. You're very smart people in this room. You can just do the math. At 100,000, we're not going to be able to hit 1.5 million homes in the next 10 years. So we made a commitment in the last election, and we're very clear with Ontarians. And I want to thank my colleagues here locally in Mississauga, and I want to thank all of you because you sent strong members back to Queen's Park. Every single member here got elected with that commitment to help us get to 1.5 million homes. And we said that's going to require bold actions, because the ones that we have taken have helped us to get to where we are. But as I said, we simply need to do more. You know, the challenges in the housing sector, I have to tell you, there are ones that require, you know, at the local level, some at the province. But as I said, when you look at, when you're in crisis, it's all hands on deck. Literally, every single person has a role to play. So when you look at the Housing Affordability Task Force that was implemented by our government, Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, and that's important to note because when you're in crisis, the Premier appointed 2 ministers responsible for housing in the province. So that says a lot about our commitment to making sure that we solve the housing challenges that we're facing here. And the housing supply, the task force, they've actually been very instrumental in the decisions that we've made thus far in our decision making. If you look at the report from the task force, or if you look at the CMHC or the Smart Prosperity Institute, they've all indicated the same thing, that we are currently short about 500,000 homes in the province of Ontario, and that we need an additional million, as I mentioned, in the next 10 years for us to be able to meet the growing demand in the province of Ontario. On top of the fact that our population is growing, we have more than 200,000 new Canadians that are coming into the province of Ontario. We need to make sure that everyone is housed when they come here. You know, I can tell you as an immigrant, when my family immigrated to Canada, they came here with a dream. I remember, I was very, very, very young, but I remember my parents talking about the dream of home ownership. I remember they talked about having the opportunity of one day buying a house. They didn't know when it was going to be, because you just don't know when you're new to the country. But I remember they felt it. It was within reach. They knew that if they work hard, if they do all the right things, they're going to have a shot at owning a home here one day. So, as I mentioned, that the crisis have many contributing aspects, but the one thing that I can tell you, the one thing that we do know is that we simply don't have enough supply right now. The demand far exceeds the supply that we have in the province. And as I mentioned, it's not going to solve until we tackle the issue of supply in our province. Study after study tells us the same thing. We simply don't have the supply, and as I said, with the growing population, it's just going to get worse and worse over time. In 2019, Minister Clark introduced our first plan, which was More Homes, More Choice Act. It was a call to action for us that brought to light the need to build more homes to keep with the rapid growing population that we were anticipating. And earlier this year, we also introduced the second housing bill, which was More Homes for Everyone, which really laid the foundation for us to be able to eliminate red tape and dissolve some of those burdens that was contributing to the cost of homes these days. And to supplement these two bills, we passed the Strong Mayors Bill a few months ago. That was to be able to address some of the shortages in supply and empower the mayors of the two largest cities in the province. Major component of the bill was, as I said, to give municipal leaders and provide them with the means to be able to work with the province and for us to be able to get shovels at the ground faster. Tuesday, just a couple of days ago, we introduced our third Housing Supply Action Plan bill, the More Homes Built Faster Act. And to tell you, I'm personally very excited about this bill because we've been working really hard, working with all of you on the ground to make sure that the voices are heard and reflected in this bill. We consulted at the community level. We consulted with developers, new homeowners, landlords, tenants, students, every demographic that's facing challenges when it comes to housing. And whether it was the roundtables that I held, or my colleague Minister Clark, or Parliamentary Assistant P.A. Holland, whether it was Hamilton or Mississauga or London or Barrie or Windsor, Guelph, York Region, Toronto, across the province, we heard the same thing. It was the same barriers that was hurting people's chances to be able to get homes built. And we took that feedback and used it to create the framework for this bill and for housing supply. And what does this new bill do? So it will help us, again, cut through red tape and the unnecessary costs that's preventing construction. We're going to build more homes along the transit corridor. I know that's something that many people in Mississauga here talked about with me, as it's a very, very growing part of the province. And we're protecting home buyers and identifying ways for renters to be homeowners as well. We're going to use provincial lands to build more attainable homes, and that's something that the Premier was very clear on. Giving up on the dream of home ownership is not an option. That's something that we want to work on with you to make sure more and more people have access to or have an opportunity to purchase a house. So look, I can tell you that there are many reasons as to why I'm here, but I just want to thank again the Mississauga Board of Trade for inviting me. When I look at, for example, the CD Howe Institute, when they talked about the cost of nearly 75 to 80,000 in York Region, the cost that's added to when you're building a unit, that I see people nodding because they know it. They've identified that's what's driving up the cost on so many of these things. Or if you look at the Building Industry and Land Development Bill, which reported that there are approximately 3,000 in additional construction costs every month through delays when it comes to a typical high-density development. The Toronto Regional Board of Trade reported that over the next 5 years, high housing costs could result in a hit to GTA's economy anywhere from 29 to 38 billion dollars. And as we in the province recover from the effects of the pandemic, these types of costs are just not sustainable. And the lack of attainable housing is a major problem that Ontarians are counting on our government and all of us, quite frankly, to fix. So again, as I mentioned, the actions have produced some results. We are seeing we saw over 100,000 housing starts, which was highest since 1987, but it's also important to note that out of those, 13,000 were rental units, which again was the highest since 1991. So when we talk about housing, I'm talking about the entire continuum. We're talking about housing for everyone. With that, new policies included in the More Homes Built Faster, we have every intention of continuing the positive pattern that we were on as of last year. Some of the changes that we're proposing as I said, it will freeze, reduce, and exempt government charges that will be able to decrease overall costs of buildings. With that same freeze, we'll be able to address the supply of rental housing by providing discounts of up to 25% for family-sized units. And with lower fees just across the board, those savings will be passed on to, as you can imagine, both home buyers and renters as well. So we'll expand the parameters of what's allowed to be built. With further planning approvals, we can create a broader mix of rental housing and ultimately helping homeowners pay their mortgage. And you may have heard one of our local champions here, Minister Rashid here, announced last week that there'll be more consumer protection coming in as well. Those who are looking at purchasing home for the very first time, we're doubling the maximum penalty to unethical builders and vendors, and allowing the Home Construction Regulatory Authority, the HICRA, to use this money to compensate home buyers affected by the wrongdoings of those bad actors. We need to change the policies that aren't working and put in place new ones that we can depend on to be able to get shovels in the ground. And again, I tell you, there is no quick fix. This is, there are measures that we're putting in to help us now, but this is something that we're looking at addressing long term as well. It's not going to be something that can be fixed overnight. During the election, I certainly was one of those when we made a promise to the millennials that again the dream of home ownership will be alive and well. So this bill is addressing the commitment that we made. You think about the seniors who are looking to downsize from their current house, and not having that option to do so. So we, as I alluded to earlier, think of newcomers, new Canadians that are coming in with that dream of home ownership. We're not going to let them down. There's got to be a process, and there's got to be a way for us to be able to cost down, and that's what this bill would address. So there's so much to do, and as I said, it's all hands on deck, and with the support of each and every one of you, all levels of government, all partners, I'm very optimistic. You know, I got to tell you, they elected us. They elected us with a strong mandate to go back and deal with many issues, and housing certainly being one of them. I can tell you, I spoke to many municipal colleagues of mine during this past election of theirs where they heard it at the door continuously about housing. And so it is an issue that we all have to work on together. And I've said this many, many times, and I'll say it to you again. Letting down the people of this province, the next generation who's looking to purchase a home or have an opportunity to do so, letting them down is not an option. We're going to work together and we're going to get it done. Again, I want to thank you very much for having me here today.
Thank you very much, Minister. I think we're going to take us through a few questions here.
Sure.
The first is on, and you mentioned some support already to...
He's fast.
Yeah. Oh, I understand you're on a tight schedule.
Oh yeah, sorry about that. The house is sitting, so.
Direct subsidies to help people that are already in their homes have been proven to be effective in the past, and I'm wondering if the government's looking at expanding rent subsidies or helping first-time home buyers with some financial assistance.
So it's a good point. First of all, I mentioned right now about the HICRA's protection for first-time home buyers. The fact that we're doubling the fines, for those bad actors. And I want to emphasize, gone are the days where people are pitted against one another. That's not happening. We're looking at partnership with everyone. And if there are bad actors, and there's always just very few, very, very few, but there needs to be protection in place to protect consumers, and that's what this will do. So the doubling of the fine and the fund that, like I said, is available to go to those who have been victims of it is there. But on the front, I do want to mention this because I forgot to say this. During the attainability aspect of this is really important to us, which is why through government surplus lands that we have in the province. As you know, the Crown is the largest owners of land in the province, and we're looking at leveraging all tools and options that are available to us, and certainly surplus government land is one of them. We've identified, and those would be provided at a much lower cost during development so that it's more attainable for people. At our first, we've identified 4 sites in the province, and we'll be continuously building on that and bringing more and more forward for development.
Thank you. With regard to this latest act, More Homes Built Faster Act, can you go a little deeper into what are some of the tools in the act that can be used by stakeholders, municipalities, and we have our city manager here in the room. What are you hearing about from your municipal partners thus far? I know that new councils have just been elected and that sort of thing, but you must be hearing some feedback. How do you think it's going to go?
Well, again, I've had many conversations with my municipal colleagues, and that's going to get even, where I'm going to do even more of that going forward as well. This housing supply action plan is a bold one. I'll tell you, there's 50 initiatives in this bill, and it involves 9 ministries. So it's a very bold, bill that we put forward. But we have to do that because whether you talk to municipal partners or developers or the nonprofits, the public, we needed to take bold actions in order for us to be able to deal with the challenges, because if we don't, the status quo wasn't working. As I said, the measures that we put in place got us, we hit some 30-year highs, but it's still not enough. We need to be able to do more. And there are, if you look at, there are other variables who obviously, right, if you look at interest rates, for example, they will have an impact as well. Sure. But the one thing that we know we're going to need is we're going to need more homes, because our population, we're going to need it. We are in a deficit right now. If you look at the studies, as I mentioned, we're about 500,000 homes short as it is. When the population continues to grow, new Canadians coming in, that's going to be even worse if we don't address it with bold actions, with a partnership, and support of municipalities.
Okay, so that's a great segue for my next question, because I was thinking about this last night when I knew that we would be doing this today with the minister, and I'm wondering, when it comes to immigration and its relationship with ultimately the need to house all of these newcomers and ensure that they're not without. And so I'm wondering, from a coordination point of view, even between the federal government and the provincial government, or within ministries provincially, what's happening on that front in terms of coordination between the fact that we want to free up the immigration backlog and get people here and make it easier for companies to bring them on board when they're having such a hard time finding labor, but at the same time ensuring that we've got the capacity to house them. What sort of discussions, dialogue might be happening between various areas of government, different governments, in balancing those two needs?
It's a very good question, actually, because when you look at immigration, I mean, it's great that we're going to be building 1.5 million homes. We also need people to be able to build those 1.5 million homes. And when you look at, and I'll just tell you the trades, for example. I'll just start with that, and I'll move on. We had a deficit in trades. We didn't have the trades that we needed, and through initiative, through Minister Monty McNaughton, he's done an incredible job at, currently we have a fair that's, bringing the trades to the students and exposing them at an early age and letting them know these are, well-paying jobs, great benefits, viable jobs of now and jobs of the future. And so that's one aspect of it. When it comes to immigration, I think, and I always say this, and I said it again when I speak, we do live in the greatest country in the world. And Trevor, it's important for us to say that. But immigrants and immigration is a big part of that. It's, we're great because of the people here. And what makes us so great is the people that come in, the people that work so hard, and just the inclusivity that we have here. So we need to continue down that. And I think one thing that people saw during the pandemic, certainly different from maybe other jurisdictions, in Canada, all of us worked well together. It didn't matter what stripe, it didn't matter what level, whether it was at the federal level, province and municipal and regions. We all got together and said, what are we going to have to do? How are we going to work together to better serve the people of the province? In Ontario, as I mentioned, every year, Trevor, we've got about 200,000, about 209,000 Canadians that come into Ontario every year. We have a say, through the ONLP, about 9,000 of them. We're asking the federal government for a little bit more say to be able to address some of the shortage that we're facing here in the province. And that collaboration between Minister McNaughton and his counterpart at the federal government is great. They're in discussions right now, and we need to make sure. But again, and I'll just end this with this. When new Canadians are coming, one of the most important areas that we need to make sure it's there for them is housing. I talk to the Board of Trade. There are business people sitting around this room. I talk to job creators. Prior to getting into this ministry role, I was with the Economic Development and the Ministry of Finance. And I used to approach some of our job creators and say, why aren't you growing? You have the opportunity. We have some of the best and brightest people in this province. And they said, we can't. We don't have housing in this region. I could grow by 25%, bring people up here, but we can't house them. So I'm limited. I can compete against anyone, around the world. But until we have adequate housing and enough supply, I can't compete.
Thank you. The other thing, too, I should note, if I'm getting this right, this is very personal for you because of your story, and I understand you came here, I think, at 8 years old from Iran, and we're all very concerned about obviously what's happening there right now, and hope that there's a quicker progression to real freedom and democracy there and peace. But So just wanted to say that. The other question I would have is about exclusionary zoning. And you'll be familiar that the Toronto Region Board of Trade and MBOT supported this position, that it should be ended in the province. What's the government's position on this?
Well, I tell you, I agree that we need more supply to come into the market. If you look at this bill, when I talked about as of right, the as of right initiative, it will allow up to 3 units to be added to units. I mean, I heard that directly from seniors, as I mentioned to you, who are looking to downsize, or the people who had an opportunity to have other family members to move in parts of the house to make it, more affordable to be able to live in their homes. So this will now allow up to 3 units, as I said, 2 in your current in your current structure, and 1, whether it's a laneway or a garden house or your garage, converted into another unit. But I'll just say this: this is again one more bill. We have a lot of work to do, and we're going to continue listening to everyone, to continue to consult, and to see what else we can do, because just taking the foot off the pedal is just not an option.
Right, that's great. I'm going to go a little bit into a niche area, and you mentioned sort of multiple unit dwellings, and one issue that has come up locally from time to time is the issue of basement apartments, and they're treated as an as of right use. So as long as they comply with municipal regulation, zoning, it's okay. But still, many homeowners have issues, have some complaints about them. Is there a happy balance here between the need for these and community concerns or neighborhoods?
When you look at, Trevor, again, when you look at the deficit in supply, I mean, the law of supply and demand it's pretty clear. We have to look at, perhaps you're referring to maybe the NIMBYism that's out there, and let's call it what it is. We're past that. We are past that stage right now, Trevor. We need to make sure that we are able to house people. It's just not an option anymore. We have to, having an opportunity to be able to add a unit to, again, a lot of seniors are choosing to stay in their own homes now. But when you are a senior, and I'm using one segment of the population. When you are a senior and you no longer need the entire place at this stage of your life, but you want to still stay in your house, so you want to find it and more ways to be able to make it affordable, that's an option for you. If you're a student, or you're a couple that just started, and you're looking at having access to a unit at a more affordable price, this is what it will solve. So yes, we're at a stage right now where we need supply, and we're going to look at every way to make sure we increase supply.
Right, and certainly within the GTA, I mean, this is where the need is most. I'm sure.
Trevor, sorry to interrupt you. I got to tell you, the population of Ontario is going to increase by more than 2 million in the next 10 years.
Yeah. Wondering, I know that your time is tight. Are we able to take a couple of quick questions from the...
I was actually thinking, since it's a very cozy group, if you don't mind, I'd like to walk around, if that's okay with the group, and just have a conversation with people.
Absolutely.
Because sometimes people are more comfortable, especially when certain personal stories. I'd like to be, if that's okay with you guys, I'd like to walk around and have some if you're okay with that.
Well,
thank you.
Thank you. I think the room is definitely okay with that. I would like to take an opportunity again to thank Lakeview Partners for supporting us today. Let's thank all of you as well for being here with us. And now we'll just have a little bit of chit-chat with Minister Parsa, and we'll be on our way.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.